What's going on, everybody? Josh Engelman for Awesemo.com. MMA is back, and it's back in a big way in 2020. The return of Conor McGregor, UFC 246, McGregor versus Cerrone. Please be sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when we go live. And if you want to sign up at Awesemo.com, use the promo code KNOCKOUT. One big word. You can get yourself 50% off your first week of our MMA package. That's projections, ownership, an article from our newest writer, Mark Stein. We're kicking off 2020 in a big way. I'm kicking it off with this video. Alrighty, we're going to start by just taking a quick lap through the entire card, starting with the early prelims. We have Alexa Kamer and Justin Ledet. We got Tim Elliott, number 7, I might add. I think Tim Elliott might hold the record for most fights ranked in the top 10 while also fighting on the early prelims. Sorry, Tim, probably not a distinction you're looking for. Elliott's taking on Oscar Askarov. We've got Brian Kelleher and Ode Osborne, and Sabina Mazo against JJ Aldrich. Those are the 4 fights that'll be on the early prelims, but we've also got the regular prelims. Roxanne Modafferi and Macy Barber. It's a big fight in the women's division. Macy Barber is probably the future, or at least one of the girls that could be the future. So I'm really anxious to see how she takes on someone that is clearly more experienced in the cage. Barber, pretty big favorite in this one. Andre Touchy-Feely taking on Sadiq Youssef. We've got Drew Dober and Nasrat Hakparast. I got that right on my first try. I'm pretty proud of myself. And then Chaz Skelly versus Grant Dawson in the battle of 2 guys that could not seem more generic. Apologies to Chaz Skelly and to Grant Dawson. And then finally, the main card. Obviously, we'll start from back to front. Number 9, Anthony Pettis, fresh off of a lawsuit against USADA in the UFC for cutting his hand on his specimen collection jar for his drug test prior to the Nate Diaz fight. We've got Claudia Gadelha and Alexa Grasso. Gadelha is training in Jersey now, hoping to change it up a little bit. She's been alternating wins and losses, could use another one here. My man, Alexei Oleinik, taking on Maurice Green. I'm a huge Oleinik fan. I don't think that he is like some sort of wonderful MMA practitioner, but my man can grapple and he will strangle you from weird angles, and that is fun to me. There's nothing better than watching a heavyweight mount Oleinik and then all of a sudden has to tap out because he has Ezekiel choked you for the second time. We've got Holly Holm, Raquel Pennington. This is the rematch of a very boring debut for Holly Holm like 5 years ago. Holm is 2-5 in her last 7 fights. The fact that she is ranked 3rd is comical at best, but she desperately needs to get a win here because it probably gets her another title shot at some belt they'll make up for her. Yeah, I'm a little bitter. They give her everything. Not a huge fan. And then finally, we've got the main event. Conor McGregor, Donald Cerrone. If you're not excited for that one, you are probably not a fight fan. I can't wait for it. I want to talk a little bit about it right now. So I think we need to touch a little bit on McGregor's recent history. And recent is an interesting word here. It was December of 2015 when he knocked out Jose Aldo and really changed the game for himself. That's a long time ago, and he has not exactly been active since then. He had the March of 2016 loss to Nate Diaz, came back in August with a win against Diaz. Sure. We'll give it to you, Conor. We'll give it to you. Then, in what I would say is honestly the best performance of his career, victory over Eddie Alvarez in November 2016, where he beat the absolute brakes off of Alvarez. It was just an absolute mauling. Go back and watch that fight. Eddie Alvarez was never in it. Conor put it on him brutally. Alvarez looked like he didn't want to be there from moment one. And then we get into the good stuff. Takes a brief break from being a UFC fighter to go box Floyd Mayweather in August of 2017. Fun night, by the way. Just in general. Flew home for it. Nobody cares. And then pretty much what Alvarez got done to him, Khabib did to Conor. October 2018, Khabib Nurmagomedov absolutely destroyed Conor McGregor. It was really tough to watch at parts. And we have not seen Conor since. And now, January 2020, from what we understand, this is supposed to be the first of 3 fights for Conor in this year, whether that's a victory over Cerrone, which leads to Jorge Masvidal, which leads to I don't know what, Khabib 2, Tony Ferguson. Look, Conor can talk a lot about wanting to fight Usman to win the 170 title, but he don't want that smoke. That's going to go real bad for him. You thought the Khabib fight was bad. Add like 30 more pounds. So, I mean, that is not a lot of that is 6 MMA fights since December of 2015, plus a boxing match against a legend. Meanwhile, Donald Cerrone, slightly more active. I can't even put a chart on the screen to go through all of that. Just know that he's in there constantly over and over and over again, which is exactly what constantly means. But I've never been more anxious to see this. McGregor does look great. The line favors him dramatically, and we will get into that in a little bit. So this is the sort of statistical tail of the tape for McGregor and Cerrone, and it looks pretty similar. Conor lands 5.3 significant strikes per minute. Cerrone, a little bit less volume, 4.4. Not terribly shocking. A lot of the significant strikes that Conor has thrown in the past were coming at 145, where you're likely to have a higher pace. So they're a little bit closer than it probably seems. They both get hit in a pretty equal manner. 4.4 significant strikes per minute absorbed for Conor, 4.2 for Cerrone. Cerrone a little bit more active and looking for a takedown, but predominantly trying to stand up. And oddly enough, Conor, 0.75 takedowns per minute. I mean, that's quite a bit less than Cerrone, but the fact that it was 0.75 kind of surprised me. I don't expect either guy to be looking for takedowns, although Cerrone should certainly want to do that. The question is he trying to get inside? Way bigger questions. Interesting piece for all of this, 70% takedown defense for Conor McGregor, 73% takedown defense for Donald Cerrone. I'd be shocked if Conor took down Cerrone or even tried to take him down unless he wasn't already stunned. The most interesting piece of this entire tale of the tape, 0 submissions for Conor McGregor. And if he subs Donald Cerrone, good luck. 1.29 submissions per 15 minutes for Donald Cerrone. That is a real legitimate method of victory here. He is legit on the ground. And if Conor makes a mistake or Donald Cerrone can put himself in an advantageous position, he'll take an arm. Best believe it. But ultimately, we're looking at 2 guys, at least from the striking department, that feel similar. I think there's more power in Conor's hands. A lot of power in Donald Cerrone's feet. All right, I realize that I'm bouncing around the screen a little bit. You gotta follow me. I'm here, I'm there, I'm everywhere. But what we're looking at right now, DraftKings salaries on the gray line across the top. Current fight odds for each individual pair. As you work yourself from left side to right side, we're going in order of the fights. McGregor and Cerrone, 74% likelihood for Conor McGregor, 26% likelihood for Donald Cerrone. So you will see, generally speaking, a natural progression of salary to fight odds. As your odds of winning the fight rise, your salary will then rise as well. There are some holes in there. We'll dig into them in a little bit, but I just want to point out some of the bigger favorites because obviously the biggest one on the card is not Conor McGregor. He is tied with Nasrat at 74% likelihood of picking up a W here. But the real highest odds go to Macy Barber. 86% chance to win this fight, just 14 for Roxanne Modafferi. And that is not surprising. I would expect Macy to run through her, but experience is big, and I am going to have a close eye on that. The other one that stands out most to me, and I expect Anthony Pettis to be a fairly live dog here, but he's a 2-1 underdog against Diego Ferreira, and you would not expect that for someone of Anthony Pettis' pedigree, but Diego Ferreira has not lost in a really long time. And I don't think he's trying to lose here. That's going to be a fantastic opener. Those are odds that I want to keep a close eye on as we get closer to the fight card. I want to see if any late money comes in on Anthony Pettis. Other big favorites, Grant Dawson in his battle against Chaz Skelly, one of the 4 fighters that are north of 70%. As I mentioned, Diego Ferreira at 67. Nobody else in the 60s. So after those big couple favorites, it's a lot of coin flip fights. Holm Pennington, Olenek Green, Grasso Gadelia, Youssef Touchy-Feely, Alexa Kamer, Justin Leday, Askarov, Tim Elliott. Tim Elliott, the underdog in that fight. Keep a close eye there. Osborne Kelleher, Aldrich Mazo. All of these fights are essentially coin flips. That makes for a very difficult card to handicap from a DFS perspective. But we've got more than just fight odds to look at. We have finish odds as well. And that is what we're going to take a look at right now to sum up the thoughts on this exciting-ish UFC card. Anytime Conor McGregor is at the top of the card, it's a must-buy. I'm going to be lucky enough to be on the West Coast, so I don't have to try to stay up until 1 o'clock in the morning to see it. Yay me. So I've got a graphic that way. I don't know. It's hard to point. Everything's in reverse. I've got a graphic on the screen showing each fighter's salary, their odds to win, their odds to finish, and how often this fight should end up being finished. So looking through the McGregor-Cerrone one, Conor McGregor is $9,400 in salary. Donald Cerrone, $6,800. Conor has a 74% chance to win. He has a 65% chance to win inside of distance. Meanwhile, Cerrone, 26% chance to win, 22% chance to win inside of distance. That surprises me, lower than I expected. All told, there is a 72% chance that this fight ends inside of distance. I would be shocked if this isn't a 100% fight, in that if you are a max entry person, I mean, if you're in any sort of scenario, I would have a hard time fading this main event. It has the highest likelihood of ending in a finish. These are two guys that are active strikers. The significant strike numbers could be big by the end of this fight if they happen to not go to a decision. I would have expected a little bit higher odds for Cerrone to pick up a finish, but at 6,800, I think he is at the very least a live dog. This is a fight that I'm going to simply want a lot of exposure to. On the flip side, Holly Holm, 8,900 as just a 56% favorite. Raquel Pennington, 44%. Neither one of them have a high likelihood of picking up a finish. We get a finish in just 23% of these outcomes, which is the lowest of any fight on this card. I have a very hard time recommending anyone from Holly Holm and Raquel Pennington. Now, obviously, projected ownership will play a big role. Make sure to check that out at awesomemo.com. And if you use that promo code KNOCKOUT, you can get yourself 50% off that first week. But I don't think that they can put up a score high enough in a 3-round fight to matter. And if the likelihood of them getting a finish is so low, I'm just not looking for it. So the fights that I'm trying to focus on, Alexei Olenek, Maurice Green, 68% likelihood that there is a finish. Macy Barber and Roxanne Modafferi. Macy Barber looking like a pretty clear cash play if you have the ability to pay up. 86% likelihood to win. That's tops on the card. 64% odds of finishing this fight. She's pretty much making up the entire odds of finishing the fight. Roxanne only has a 7% chance to pick up a finish. Not likely. So I am looking at Macy Barber, obviously, in cash scenarios. Not entirely sure I love that in GPPs. I think I would rather have Conor at 94, although I expect him to be popular for narrative reasons as well. We can also look a little bit at a fight like Brian Kelleher and Ode Osborne. 55% likelihood of finishing inside of distance. That's a pretty big number. Kelleher, not a massive underdog. 56-44. Those are the same odds as Holly Holm, Raquel Pennington. Osborne coming in $300 cheaper with a higher likelihood of finishing the fight inside a distance. Same story for Brian Kelleher. I would much rather target this fight than target anybody in home Pennington, for example. Much more likely to pick up the finish, similar price tags, similar odds. Other guys that I'm taking a look at, it would be hard to not want to look at least a little bit in those 3 fights that are just after that J.J. Aldrich-Sabina Mazo fight. Aldrich-Mazo, you can pretty much skip as far as I'm concerned. But Tim Elliott and Askar Askarov. Elliott, not huge odds to pick up a finish, but 50-50 shot that fight doesn't go the distance. Elliott's going to be active. I see him as a relatively live dog given the odds. I want to pay close attention to his ownership in large field contests. I think Tim Elliott could be one of the underdogs that you kind of need to hitch your wagon to. And another one would be Anthony Pettis. I expect him to be mildly popular as an underdog. 2-1 underdog, 67% chance to win for Diego Ferreira. Relatively low odds for Pettis, 19% of picking up a finish. That is not normally like him, but it's still close to a coin flip that this fight doesn't go the distance. It being a 3-round fight, I think, is oddly beneficial for Pettis. He has a tendency to fade and end up looking like the picture that's over there. I'm just terrible at pointing. I think at 7,200, he's pretty live. I would be more likely to take Pettis than I would Donald Cerrone. And if Cerrone is picking up a ton of extra ownership, I think that Pettis could be an interesting pivot there, especially if that you just want to open up Conor in that scenario. But what I'm trying to do when I'm looking through a UFC card is evaluate salary and win percentage along with how likely is it that this fight ends quickly. Now, if I'm just summing it up, I'm going to expect full 100% exposure to Conor McGregor, Donald Cerrone. How that splits will be telling. I won't know that till Saturday morning once we have our final ownership run and all of the late money has started to come in. I assume it will be heavy on Conor McGregor. I expect him to win that fight and win that fight early, but there's a tiny part of me that's telling me that Donald Cerrone catches him and strangles him. If I'm putting money down, it's Conor McGregor. Don't hate the idea of Cerrone strangling him. Ignoring Holly Holm, Raquel Pennington, I would expect the action on Oleinik Green to be relatively split on my end, and projected ownership will play a big role there. Ultimately, I want to have pretty heavy exposure to that fight, just given the odds of both fighter and the likelihood that it ends in a finish. Grasso-Gadelha is a full-on coin flip fight. It's another fight where you want to play close attention to the ownership. I would rather get Grasso at the $400 price discount, but neither one of them particularly likely to get a finish. I like Pettis as a live dog against Diego Ferreira. I just don't feel like he should be 72%, and I think that line shrinks as we get closer to the card, unless the UFC has it out for him for suing them. Not out of the realm of possibility. Macy Barber looking good in cash. Roxy, I just don't think has a chance to stand up to her in this one. Best of luck, Roxy, but I don't get the sense that I would want a single share of you. Touchy-feely and Youssef, it's an okay fight. 49% odds of a finish, so it's 50-50. As long as no one picks up a ton of ownership, I think you can treat that fight however you would like. If someone picks up very high ownership, I think it's ripe for a fade. Nasrat Haqparast and Drew Dober. Haqparast should just run right through him, but it's not that kind of fight. Not terribly likely to finish Dober. I'm not as enamored with this fight. Should be an easy victory for Nasrat, but I'm not sure I love him in GPPs. I would rather save an extra $100, go to Grant Dawson, 70-30 to win, slightly higher odds of picking up a finish. Maybe not necessarily as the full fight, Dober not as live as Chaz Skelly, but I would rather look to Grant Dawson than Nasrat if I'm looking to pay into the 9K range. Kamer Leday, just given Kamer's odds of picking up a finish, I would lean a little bit more there, but 8,800 is a big price tag, and I don't think the gap between these two guys is all that big. So I think Justin Leday is one of the better underdog plays. 7,400 is cheap. Keep an eye on the ownership, though. There's only so high you want to go when a $7,400 fighter is picking up ownership. But I think Leday looks best. That's a really nice price tag for someone that is in a 52-48 fight. Askarov, Tim Elliott. I've mentioned my thoughts on Tim Elliott before. It's another guy. Him, both Elliott and Leday, 7,400, 7,500. I think that's a range that I want to be in if I'm trying to look for an underdog to be in one of my lineups. Kelleher Osborne looks like a fight you want to target and get a pretty solid amount of exposure to. Maybe not necessarily 100%, but pretty high. 55% odds of finishing that fight inside a distance is the fourth highest mark on that card. So I want to get exposure there. And then JJ Aldrich, Sabina Mazo. I'm sorry, but a coin flip fight between two women kicking off the card and very, very, very low odds of a finish. Lowest on the entire fight card besides Holly Holm and Raquel Pennington. I am largely fading the women on this card, and it's just not going to be for me. But let me know in the comments who is going to win. Conor McGregor, Donald Cerrone. Who wins? What round? Method of victory. If anybody gets that right, the winner, the round, and how they win will give away a free month of all access to Awesemo.com. So let us know in the comment section, and I will let you guys know after Saturday if anybody was able to pick that up. I'm going to go on the record, official pick. Conor McGregor, knockout, round 2. That's where I'm at. Like, subscribe, notification bell, promo code knockout if you want to sign up for the MMA weekly package at Awesemo.com. 50% off if you use that code. Check out Mark Stein's article, which should be up in the next day or two. It is Tuesday as I'm recording this, but check that out. It'll be the debut article from Mark on the website. Best of luck, everybody. And I will touch base for the next UFC card.